Hi everyone, thank you for checking out this short review of Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe. I know that the title of this video sounds very captivating and like a bold statement, but I'm serious when I say that the book Tribe is probably the most important book that I think anybody should read. And the reason I say that is because I think it speaks about something which is so unspoken and yet so felt in our current American culture. So in case you don't really know about this book, in short, Tribe is a book that is all about what modern day Western culture is lacking due to the social structures that we live in. The problem is that I feel like the book is hard to recommend because it deals with a lot of really disturbing things like actual violence in history. It's not an easy read by any means or a pleasant read in various sections. But you know, there's different things in the book that are just really important to reflect upon. It's not good enough to just read and dismiss. One thing that I think is really interesting, a story that Sebastian Junger states, is that the difference between tribal people, like the Native Americans, or the colonials. When colonial children and other civilians were captured by these Indian tribes, they actually, once they were indoctrinated into that tribal culture, they would flee back to that culture when they were rescued and brought back to their colonial upbringing. So you have these people who are white that actually want to live in these smaller tribal environments. I say all this because I think that the individualism that we experience in America, where nobody needs anything from anybody else, people rarely are in communities where they feel like they are valuable in that community, functioning and being productive and healthy and safe. We all feel really disconnected, and there's something really special that is missing because these tribal cultures, everybody depended on each other, even if they disagreed with each other or they didn't like everybody in the group. They still had to depend on each other for their survival. They still had this solidarity. They still had this unity to who they were. And we don't really see that in our modern day 21st century American culture. We see everybody as an individual, and we operate as very isolated people. He mentions that when there are natural disasters, when there are wars, people will actually spring to action, and depression rates and all kinds of mental health issue rates will go down. When you think about it, people nowadays could literally live in their house, have a job from home, have food shipped to their door, and never talk to anyone ever. It's crazy when you think about how little we depend on other people and how disconnected we could actually be from other people when it was an evolutionary, essential byproduct of our environment to be dependent on each other and to be in tribes. So there are actually a couple other things I wanted to mention about the book Tribe, which I think are really interesting. One of which is Junger's talk about how in tribal communities, the children, the adults, everybody would sleep in these communal areas. They wouldn't have individual bedrooms. And I just think that's really a profound thing, that there's actually been proof that children at such a young age feel abandoned when they are put in their cribs away from their parents for the night. There's just something about the fact that these communities, these tribes, they really do benefit the development of children, not just in that way of communal sleep, but also in just the rites of passage that they give young boys. The other thing I was going to mention is that there is in some ways tribal behaviors in modern American culture. And I don't mean specifically secular culture, but I do mean places like the Amish. It's actually turned out that I visited what is like a subset of the Amish out in Montana, and it's fascinating how this group of people called the Hutterites, they live in these communities in the middle of nowhere. They have these large communal dinners every day, and they have all these different little apartments and houses that are all lined up side by side. I wouldn't be surprised if the Amish and other groups like them have lower depression rates. And I've even heard that tribes overseas in some of these really like third world countries, that they mention that nobody has depression in their little small African tribes, that they don't have a word for that. They don't understand why people shut down and wouldn't be able to operate. So I feel like people are becoming less connected because either they're overworked or they don't really know what they want to do to fit in with strangers, and they're suffering for it. And they don't know why, and they don't know how to get better. And I really think that, yeah, it's important to find a group. Just volunteer your time to get to know other people. Sebastian Junger also stated in an interview, I don't think he states it in his book, but he states it in an interview, and I just want to say this before I wrap up, that he thinks that something that could be really essential and helpful for the American culture is a draft, but for work. What if we, no matter who it was, across the board, the richest person's child down to the poorest person, everybody is required for this 1 to 2 years of manual, physical, or other kinds of labor. Obviously, not everyone's going to agree with it. Not everyone would want to do it, but that's part of that unity building, that we're all, regardless of our background, how rich our parents are, our political opinions or sexual orientation opinions, or any of these things, we're all Americans and we're all working on something together. I think that there's a lot of really interesting ideas and important topics discussed in this book, and I think people need to be talking about it more. Thank you again for checking out this video, and I look forward to making more content that you can see soon.